Hello and welcome to ACS Golf and this week's review where I'm going old school. I'm going back over 30 years to look at a set of irons that I picked up. Specifically, they came out in 1993 and they're the Mizuno TP 2000s. The TP stands for Tour Proven. Now, specifically, these are actually limited edition ones, so I only made 1,000 of these. I actually picked up the set of 16, so 16 out of 1,000. So I got all the way from 3 iron all the way down to pitching wedge. Now, the reason I picked these up is number one, I thought they're pretty cool, but also I wanted to test if you can indeed pick up a set of bladed irons, that are over 30 years old and still get the performance you want as you would, say, a modern day set. I personally do not play blades. I'm a lower handicapper, but I just, don't strike the ball well enough to play blades, even though I would love to. However, I have tested blades before for the channel. So, I'm really intrigued to see if these do match off from what I would expect a modern blade to do. Also, massive fan of Mizuno, pretty much all the time. I do play Mizunos in the bag. Currently got Mizuno set in the bag at the moment. So I'm really intrigued to see if, as they say nowadays, nothing feels like a Mizuno, to see if this is still the case with a set of irons from 30 years ago. Now, as always, what we're going to do is we're going to have a closer look at the club. Then we're going to come back here, go for the technology that's in it. Obviously, as it's 30 years old, I have struggled to find information about these clubs. So I will share what I've found. Obviously, if you guys are watching it and you know more about these, do let me know down in the comments below. Then we're going to get down to range. I took the 5 iron, the 7 iron, and the pitching wedge. I'm going to throw some figures at you, and then we'll come back here for the ACS Golf Scale and the conclusion about these clubs. And something I didn't think of when I was testing them, to be honest. I'll explain all of that later on. All right, guys. Now, as always, let's have a closer look at this, butter knife of a club. So there you go, a closer look at the club. Look at the size of it. It's absolutely tiny. Look at that top line. That just instills fear in anyone. The size of it is well compared to a golf ball. It's not actually the smallest thing I've seen in the world, but wouldn't really inspire me with a huge amount of confidence trying to hit this. If I was actually on the golf course, obviously on the range, it's a different story because I know it doesn't really matter if I spray it left or right. Now let's get into the technology about this club. Firstly, I will just say, normally with irons, I do show a longer iron and a shorter iron because obviously nowadays a lot of modern sets, they are progressive sets. However, in the case of these, they're exactly the same. What I can see anyway throughout the set, the only difference is the loft changes and they become even more scarier looking as you get up to the 3 iron. But anyway, so the information that I've found about these clubs, so limited edition model in 1993 when they're brought out, which was basically to celebrate Mizuno receiving the Tournament Quality Award from the European Tour. I don't know if they still do that award, but they did back in 1993. They only made 1,000 sets. They were based on the famous TN87. So obviously they're actually based on a set of irons even earlier. So you could say, well, hold on, maybe these aren't over 30 years. Maybe they're 35 years, 36 years, because it came out in 87, this one. The T987 set from Japan, but forged with ceramic chrome, so they did change it slightly. Forged with ceramic chrome and a champagne finish. We can sort of still see there, after 30 years. These have held up pretty well. So the T987 was the same one that Nick Faldo used for his 2 major wins in 1990. So basically they took the TN87, which is a very popular tour-proven iron, and then they just sort of jazzed it up a little bit to make it a little bit more modern with that sort of forged technique to make these. The tour-proven 2000s. So there you go. That's all the technology I know about it. Shaft-wise, you had a what was it? Dynaflex gold in here, which is a nip-on shaft, so still a big shaft maker nowadays. And to be fair, pretty sure these are supposed to be regular. Pretty sure they're supposed to be regular. In some ways regular, but it does feel quite stiff actually, to be fair. Maybe they're not regular. I sworn they're regular. Anyway, who knows? But there you go. There is the 7 iron. All right, now let's get down to the range. We're going to throw some figures at you, and then we'll come back here for the ACS Golf Scale. All right, see you in a bit. So here I am down at the range for the pitching wedge, the 7 iron and the 5 iron. A couple of shots with the pitching wedge, then the 7 iron, and then the 5 iron. Pitching wedge for me, what I'll be looking for with a club like this is around 120 total yards. 7 iron around 150 yard mark, and the 5 iron probably around 170 yard mark. So getting to the pitching wedge. So on average, I had a carry of 102 yards and a total distance 104 yards. Ball speed 82 miles per hour. Launch angle 34 degrees, sorry, and a height of 73 feet. So quite low down compared to what I would expect a pitching wedge. However, there was a reason for this, and I'll explain at the end of this video. 7 iron had a flat carry of 142 yards, total distance 151 yards, ball speed 104 miles per hour, launch angle 21 degrees, and height 66. Got the total distance I'd expect with the 7 iron. However, you know, that carry was quite low, so it did have quite a lot of rollout. So I think this club wasn't quite spinning as I would have hoped, especially something with these lofts. You know, these are old clubs, you know, old bladed clubs. They're going to be lofted quite high. So quite surprised it wasn't spinning enough to really get it in the air, get it to land, and get it to stop rolling. Because, you know, 9 yards rolling with a 7 iron, with a bladed 7 iron anyway, isn't great. Moving on to the 5 iron, you know, had a total carry of only 148 yards, total distance 165 yards, ball speed 112 miles per hour, launch angle 17, and height 57 feet. Again, same issue with the 7 iron, just too much of a rollout for me. You know, you'd be really aiming for the front of the green, expecting this to roll on. Clearly, it's just not spinning as I wanted it to spin, because, you know, I'd expect that carry to be higher with all those clubs. Here's the figures for the clubs. You know, total distance wise, a 5 iron and 7 iron pretty much got to where I'd expect it to be. Pitching wedge was quite short, and I'll explain why at the end of this video. One thing that did concern me was the carry. You know, the 7 iron I'd expected to carry a little bit more and have a bit more, less of a rollout. Especially the 5 iron, you know, I would have thought the carry would be up sort of in the 150s, and again, a bit of a lesser rollout. Pitching wedge carry and total distance was exactly what I would expect from a wedge. So there you go, and not that bad of figures actually. Probably done better than I thought they would. You know, with a bladed iron for me, 170 I'd say on average, so total distance for 5 iron. You know, 7 irons around that 150 mark normally for me, and then pitching wedge would normally be about, I'd say, 120-ish mark, maybe a little bit lower than that. In this case, you know, 5 iron got 165 yards on average, and 7 iron got 151 yards on average. So this is total distance, by the way, not carry, so pretty much spot on. And then the pitching wedge only got to 104. And I'll explain why the pitching wedge only got to 104, because it's, as I mentioned before, it's something I didn't think of. I will explain at the end of this video, which is something you definitely need to look out for if going for really old irons. So yeah, so, you know, looking a little bit more into the distance, you know, the average 165, you know, a lot of them around there, you know, had a carry of 151, carry 155, carry 153. So very much, you know, as you'd expect with a blade, you know, very sort of consistent. Total distance 164, 167, 169, depending on how good I got the launch. So maybe a little bit more rollout than I'd expect, perhaps. You know, normally with a blade you have quite a lot of spin, so you don't, even with a 5 iron, you don't have too much rollout, especially with natural loft as well, just gets the ball up in the air. Really bad hit in there. Well, I didn't hit the middle of the face at all. It wasn't horrendous, but didn't hit the middle of the face. And I dropped all the way down to 146. Big drop off there, so do be warned. And then one when I absolutely went for it, got it right out of the middle, and managed to get it to carry 157. So carry was relatively the same still, but I actually got 178 because it just rolled out more. So I had a higher launch, but maybe a little bit less spin because it came on maybe off a little bit off the bottom of the face, and it just rolled out more. And that sort of brought those averages up to really where the average actually was if you ignore the longest and you ignore the middle one. 7 iron, again, 151, you know, had a carry 145, carry 145, total distance 155, total distance 151. So all again around that mark. Again, though, misses with the 7 iron, you know, suddenly dropped from 155 down to 141. So a bit of a big drop there. And again, when I really went for it, when I really had that confidence, when I'm really trying to get it to go as far as possible, I managed to push up to 150. And again, rolled out quite a lot, 165. Modern iron, I don't know if it's a shaft, I don't know, maybe the shaft, because I thought it's regular, maybe it's not, maybe it's a little bit stiffer. But that's quite a rollout for me. Maybe it's lost some spin over the years. The grooves aren't as good as they used to be, or the fact is, obviously the groove technology, let's be honest, over the past 30 years really has improved to get the spin up. So just wasn't holding the greens as much as I want. There's a lot more rollout than I would expect from this type of club. But not at the end of the day, because it's still getting to my distances there, And that one big one, again, like I said, 150, 165, and then the miss hits, averaged out to what I would expect it to be and what I was hitting on average, If you ignore those two, still at 151 total distance and carry 142. So maybe, yeah, with a normal blade, with a 7 iron, I'd expect it to be sort of carry close to the 150 mark, and then the rollout, not that much, maybe 3-4 yards. So, having a rollout there of needed 10 yards, so it's 9 yards on average. It's quite a bit. Moving on to the pitching wedge, only had an average 102, a carry 104 total yards. When I really went for it, I got 108. No real bad shots for that one. But yeah, again, maybe I just don't know. Only roll out, I guess, on average 2 yards there. So pitching wedge is probably spot on to where I'd expect, to be fair, when it comes down to holding that green. So yes. But overall, the pitching wedge was quite short of what I'd expect my club, a bladed club, to go for me. And I will explain that in a second of why that is. It's not actually down to the club itself. But anyway, so let's get into the ACS goal scale. So remember, we've got distance, feel, looks, price, and forgiveness. 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. Distance for me, a blade would normally I'd be giving like sort of 2.5, really, if it's hitting those sort of marks. This I've given it 2. Not the end of the world. I think the distance is pretty good, definitely for the age of it, to be fair. And it's up where I'd expect it to be for a blade. Well, some of the clubs are anyway. Again, I'll explain why at the end. They're not maybe quite there. My only issue is the fact that it's quite a lot of rollout. I just prefer a little bit more spin there, especially with the lower clubs like that 7 iron. A little bit more hold. But never mind. The fact as well, on average, I was only carrying the 5 iron, say, well, yeah, probably about 10-15 yards. So, but anyway, it's just rolling out a little bit too much for me, potentially what I'd expect from a blade. But overall, 2 out of 5, the 5 iron got close to that 170 mark that I was expecting total distance. The 7 iron was on that 150 total distance I was expecting, just a little bit more rollout than I'd want. But yeah, so not the end of the world. So 2 out of 5, so not bad actually. Quite surprised by that, especially when I discuss my findings at the end in a second. Feel wise, feel 4 out of 5. I was actually disappointed about the feel of this. I love Mizuno's. I think they're some of the best feeling irons I've felt out there. I've had Mizuno's in the bag for years. MP18 MMCs, MP20 MMCs, MP20 HMBs, JPX Hot Metal, JPX Hot Metal Pros, a real range of irons from Mizuno. They all feel lovely. This wasn't bad at all, don't get me wrong. It was a 4 out of 5 for feel. Couldn't quite tell where my miss hits were, though. Normally with a blade like this, if you do a really bad hit, you feel it in your hands. Didn't necessarily actually feel that with this, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but not as much feedback as I'd expect as a modern blade, so be aware of that. And it just wasn't as soft as I was expecting a modern blade, a blade to be. Normally I expect it to be butter soft. This was a little bit firmer. Still not bad feeling at all, 4 out of 5, but when you hit a blade out in the middle and it's just so soft and buttery, I love it. I just didn't quite get that with these guys. And there was a few times where I did hit it out the middle, surprisingly. But yeah, 4 out of 5, still nothing bad, but definitely not compared to your modern blade. Definitely, those force techniques have obviously improved over the years. So there you go. On to looks. Looks wise, again, actually 3 out of 5. I think it looks pretty cool. I like that sort of look. I like the logo on it. I'm just not a massive fan of the, that rectangle, well, not rectangle, that sort of square edge there. Rather have that little sort of, if that was rolled and smooth edge there, then I'd much prefer, a bit too many straight angles for me, and that's why I've only got a 3 out of 5. Forgiveness, as you'd expect, a blade that's 30 years old, I've given it 1 out of 5. It's an unforgiving beast, and you can see that when the fact, I've hit and miss hits, and I've suddenly lost. With a 5 iron, I've lost 20 yards nearly. With a 7 iron, I've lost 10 yards. It is an unforgiving beast. So 1 out of 5. Don't get me wrong, modern blades, again, they have a little bit more forgiveness in there, but are the most forgiving clubs. But yes, 1 out of 5. So do be aware of it. As you'd expect, it's not forgiving at all. But then for those sort of players who are using it back in the day, they didn't need that forgiveness. They're good enough to hit the middle every single time. Price now. Price is a bit of a weird one because this is a limited edition set. So you could say it's collectible and therefore the price is what the price is. I'll let you guys decide on that. However, I've given it a 2 out of 5. For the collectible side of it, I think it's pretty cool. But, if you're looking at second-hand stores, I'm seeing, so like places like Golf Clubs for Cash, I'm seeing this for like £350. So that's around $430 roughly. £300, that's $375 roughly. I'm seeing the 3 irons or 1 irons or 2 irons going for £50. So, I don't know, $75 online, second-hand. So it's punchy for this. I've seen them go for 3 to sand wedge for £180 in the UK. So that's around $230. So that's not as bad, to be honest, but you can definitely pick up modern blades for cheaper than that, all exactly the same price. So 2 out of 5 for me. If you want to play a blade, you can definitely get better options out there. Well, newer options out there anyway. It's probably going to feel nicer and perform a little bit better. Get that stopping distance. Get that sort of control. Don't get me wrong, the control of this is great. You can fade it, whatever. And when you hit it out of the middle, it is consistent, which is also an important thing. But just a little bit more stopping power, a little bit more spin on it, a little bit more feel, a little bit more forgiveness as well, definitely. So, yeah, it's definitely better options out there. But because it is collectible, I've stuck it at sort of that 2 out of 5. Even though normally I probably would have put it as lower, to be honest. So, the thing that I found out about this club afterwards was actually changed my opinion of it quite a lot, and I didn't think of it. It's definitely something you guys need to think of if you're looking to get a really old set of golf clubs, and that is the standard lofts. Didn't even think about looking at it. Assume there'll be like pigeon wedge 46 or maybe 47, blah 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 blah. It's not. So if I go for it, I'll tell you now, and I'm going to put it against the 241 lofts. So the what's it called now? Mizuno Pro. So Mizuno Pro 241, which is their most recent blades. I'm going to give you the lofts of them as well so you can compare and see how much the lofts actually differ with this. And differ from 30 years ago. So 1 iron in this was 16 degrees, which is pretty on point nowadays. It's definitely 16 degrees. I don't think you can go any lower with the 1 iron, to be fair. 2 iron, 18 degrees, again, pretty normal. 3 iron, 21 degrees, again, pretty normal. The Mizuno Pro now is 21 as well. And then we start to see the differences creep in. So 4 iron in this is 25 degrees. In the 241, it's 24 degrees, 1 degree less. 5 iron in this is 29 degrees. Mizuno Pro is 27 degrees, so 2 degrees stronger. 6 iron is 33 degrees, Mizuno Pro is 30 degrees, so 3 degrees stronger. 7 iron is 37 degrees. 37 degrees. I mean, it looks like an 8 iron, kind of like that. Well, modern 8 iron anyway. It's 34 degrees. That's again 3 degrees stronger in the more modern blade. 8 iron, it's 41 degrees. Mizuno Pro is 38 degrees. So really getting big gaps here, so 4 degrees there. 9 iron, it gets back closer again. It's a bit of a weird one. So 9 iron is 45 degrees. Mizuno Pro is 42 degrees. And then you get the, because that is 45, 44, 4 degrees. No, 3 degrees. 3 degrees difference. You wouldn't guess I'm actually, my day job's accountant, would you? Don't have my trusty calculator, that's why. Anyway, and then pitching wedge, this is the big one, 50 degrees. Well, obviously a modern pitching wedge from Mizuno Pros is 46 degrees. And that explains with the wedge why I was only getting about 110. Why couldn't, well, wasn't 110, sorry, it was getting average of 104. That's my gap wedge, which is 50 degrees. So my gap wedge in my bag is 50 degrees. So I'm getting pretty much my gap wedge numbers there because it is a gap wedge in modern day standards. So when you look at that, and that's why I gave it a 2 out of 5 actually overall. and possibly distance-wise, you can maybe give it a little bit more if you're just looking at the lofts. Obviously, you're not, and that's why it's 2 out of 5 for distance, but you need to be aware of the lofts of these older clubs, because suddenly you're going, you know, right, 5-iron, that's pretty much fine, but then, you know, you don't need a gap wedge because your pitching wedge is your gap wedge. You know, it's just 50 degrees. So suddenly, you're losing a club at the bottom of the bag you don't necessarily need, which is quite nice. You can put it at the top or put in another, you know, even a higher lofted wedge. So it does give you an option. So you need to think about it if you're going to pick up an old set of clubs, because suddenly, you know, you might pick up an old set of clubs and he's really cool. Back in the day, I used to play them. They were great, whatever. Put them in your bag, and then suddenly you realise your gap wedge is getting the same distance as your pitching wedge. Just need to be aware of that, which made me think even more positive about these clubs, because the pitching wedge was going where I needed it to go, and that's why I got a 2. You know, it was a little bit short normally on the gap, but that's why I got a 2 rather than say a 1, because you would normally, if I'm a pitching wedge, normal pitching wedge that was 46 degrees was going 104, 106 yards, I'd be like, this is awful, it's not going anywhere. But that is why, because of the lofts. So do be aware of the lofts. So my overall thoughts about the Mizuno TP, or Tour Proven 2000. And if I think you can play with a set of blades 30 years ago, well, I think you can. I think you can. I think if you're a really good ball striker, you can definitely play with these. I think you can definitely take them out. But you need to consider, as I said, the lofts, and also the fact that these are going to be so unforgiving as well. So it's one of these things. I think they're great. I think if you just want to go out on the golf course, have something old school and cool in the bag, you know, have a bit of fun with, you know, you're not really too worried about the score, then yes, go and play these 30 years ago, do it. If you want to be putting scores in, if you're doing competitions, etc., and you're just basically looking for a blade that you want to, you know, love the feel of, etc., then no, definitely go for something a little bit more modern. I don't need to say you need to go, you know, 2-3 years, 4, 5, you know, I think you definitely go 10 years older. You know, I tried some night blades, I think are great when it comes down to those sort of bladed irons, and they're sort of what, 2014. So you don't need to go like really modern, but you know, you can still go about 10 years old, 10, 11 years old, and get a really nice feeling blade for a really good price. But overall, fun if you're just getting out on the golf course. And I'm going to take these out on the golf course, you know, as well, and have a good bit of fun with them. Not worry about the score, and just enjoy using something that's old school, you know, limited edition, and is part of, you know, Mizuno's history. You know, I would enjoy it. But yes, if you're doing a competition and you're worried about your, or you're just worried about your score, you want to get your handicap up, etc., I suggest to go for something a little bit modern. So there you go. So basically, the answer is yes, you can do. You can use a 30-year-old blade, but you really need to question of why you want to use 30-year-old blades. You want to use them because you just want to have a bit of fun. Yes. If you want to actually put decent scores in, no, go get yourself some more modern ones. All right, guys. Now I hope you enjoyed this review of the Mizuno Tour Pro 2000. Do remember to give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe to the channel as well and hit that bell icon so you do not miss, you know, reviews out every Sunday of second-hand clubs. I mean, I doubt we're going to go 30 years again for a while. We're looking at more modern clubs normally, but in the second-hand market on a Sunday, and you do get the odd brand new club reviewed on the Friday, as well as a few extra videos in there also. So you want to hit that subscription button so you don't miss out, and comment down below, you know, today, what's the oldest clubs you would put in your bag and play and enjoy yourself, you know? So back in the past, what you played over the years, you know, what would you play with if you could again? All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon for the next ACS Golf video. All right, see you then. Bye-bye.